Well, we're to the next person, and we're going to have to break in the middle of this, but we'll go ahead and get started and just be aware that he's going to get a signal in a bit.
Okay.
10 years after it's all happened, you've already started to mention it, so what are your thoughts about the controversial 16-part series, The Balance of Christian Unity, everything surrounding that?
The only article that I'd characterize as controversial was the Homer Haley article, and that was somewhat out of character for the paper. I'm not sure that it should have been done. My recollection is that I sent that to all of you guys before it was published, and that's not to say that anybody else would have done it, but nobody objected to my doing it. I felt at that point that was a kind of a critical statement about the factiousness that we needed to avoid. The series on fellowship was something actually that I preached for a good while and that I thought a lot about just in terms of fellowship. It was obviously applicable to the situation. Those articles are basically historical and just describe the way in which the movement has reacted to differences of belief. Now, my Romans 14 allusions, which is what's been picked up on, I probably should have left out. However, if you're asking me the question, you still believe that? I still believe exactly that. That's the way I exegete Romans 14, contrary to some present scholars. But they were not. It was not central to the series of articles at all. The series of articles were about. I believe our movement basically divides in two ways over hermeneutical dissonance, when people come to the point that they are no longer reading the scriptures and interpreting the scriptures in the same way, and over generational changes, in which over a period of time people no longer behave themselves the same way. Now that's what those articles said, and they are more or less just statements of fact. I think obviously that's a question that has needed to be discussed, has been discussed. In recent years, I've noted there are a lot more people who kind of agree with my interpretation of Romans 14. But those articles, I think, they serve a purpose, and they were okay. No, I wouldn't take any of that back.
Have I read those correctly, that the thrust of the articles was how we make fellowship decisions?
Absolutely.
And not how we ought to do it, but how we do it.
How we have done it. That's correct. And in fact, that ends up with probably how we ought to do it, in the sense that there is no other way. I mean, in my book, The Church is Christ in the 20th Century, I make the point that if you're a part of a movement that says, we believe every person has a right to read the scriptures and determine what they say, and we are bound to do what we believe the scriptures teach, you live in a wild democracy. We always have. And people have always disagreed. Their disagreements were much more on the surface in the 1950s on non-institutional issues. There were lots of disagreements. I don't like them. I would like for it to be otherwise, but that is the way it is. And so, if you're engaged in conversation with a progressive out here, what he will say about that is, well, your principle won't work. You can't do that. I don't believe that's true. I believe the principle does work, but it doesn't work in the sense that it means everybody arrives at the same conviction about every passage of Scripture at the given moment. So that, I might need to go back and read those articles and be sure I said exactly what I mean, but in so much as they expressed that. And they were basically historical, and basically a rehashing of historical material that I'd written before.
Yeah, in your new book, so, I mean, I reread it in preparation for this. You showed how there were people that said the same things prior to you ever writing about various different venues. So.
Yes, that's right.